Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our first video over our word problem solving strategy called Connect for Thinking. Now, this is a strategy created by the company Lead Forward that was originally geared towards a reading strategy, and I took it and adjusted it in order to create something that is usable for math. So the first part of this is we're looking at your problem. The problem goes in this top portion here. In our next box, we will do our model. Our next box is going to be our computation. And finally, our last box is going to be our sentence and answer. Okay. This is also following the parts of model drawing for problem solving. I'm just combining it with a couple other things and expanding upon it a bit and putting it into a format that you can visually see everything. So let's take a look at the problem that we have this morning. It says, the Goodwin family traveled by bus to Corpus Christi. The bus ride was 316 miles one way. After arriving in Corpus Christi, the family rented a car and drove another 56 miles to visit relatives. The next day, they drove back to Corpus Christi, returned the car, and rode the bus back home. Which equation could be used to find M, the total number of miles the Goodwins traveled round trip? Now, this problem comes with multiple choice answers. Most of the time when we do problem solving with Connect for Thinking, you will not have this. You will just be coming up with the solution, the answer, the equation, using the information in the problem. So we've read our problem once. Now we need to read it a second time, and we need to identify important information. The Goodwin family traveled by bus to Corpus Christi. The bus ride was 316 miles one way. After arriving in Corpus Christi, the family rented a car and drove another 56 miles to visit relatives. The next day, they drove back to Corpus Christi, returned the car, and rode the bus back home. Which equation, they're not looking for a number, they're not looking for a total, they want to know the equation, could be used to find M, the total number of miles the Goodwins traveled round trip? I'm also going to box M, the total number of miles the Goodwins traveled round trip, to remind myself what the equation is looking for. I'm going to draw this two different ways. I know that the total is what I'm being asked to look for. But before I get to the actual traditional model, as far as what you've seen with model drawing, I'm going to give myself a little bit of a different picture. So I'm going to say that they started at home, and it says that they traveled by bus to Corpus Christi. And going to Corpus Christi was 316 miles. Then they traveled by car to visit relatives, and from Corpus Christi to their relatives was 56 miles. Then they drove, returned from the relatives back to Corpus Christi, driving that 56 miles again, and then got back on the bus and rode the 316 miles back on the bus to get back home. So we have our to and our from trip. They want to know what the total mileage is. So my traditional model, I need my total bar. I do not know the total miles. I just know that it's going to equal miles. And now for my parts bar underneath. I have 1, 2, 3, 4 parts to this trip. We have the bus ride number 1, the car ride number 1, the bus ride number 2, and the car ride number 2. Whoops. This is why you don't write in pen, ladies and gentlemen, for math. So the first bus ride was 316 miles. The first car ride was 56 miles. The second bus ride was 316 miles, and the second car ride was 56 miles. So now we have our model showing how we would do this. Now once we get to the computation, we have to remember that computation is usually solving it. It's showing the work. But in this case, they want the equation. They don't want us to find the actual mileage. So I'm going to look at this a couple different ways. I know that I could add 316 miles plus 316 miles plus 56 miles plus 56 miles. And that would equal M, because I would need to add these four pieces up to get my total. Now, this is a little long, to be truthful, and I do not see anything that looks like this equation here. So I'm going to rewrite this a bit. If I know that I have 316 two times, I can rewrite that using parentheses. I need to multiply 316 miles times 2. And I also need to multiply 56 miles times 2. And then I could add them together to equal M. So I've got two different ways I can write this. So now I'm going to come take a look at my answer choices to see what I've got. The first one says 316 miles plus 56 times 2. The problem with this answer is that we're missing the second 316 miles. So I know that answer can't be correct. Now, this says 316 miles plus 316 miles and 56 miles plus 56 miles, but then they're saying to multiply them together. That doesn't make sense. We're not multiplying the two round trips together. So this piece right here automatically makes this wrong. Now this next one says 316 miles plus 56 times 56. This right here says that they made the 56-mile trip 56 times. That doesn't make sense. They didn't do that. This last one says that they drove 316 miles 2 times. They drove 56 miles 2 times, and they're adding those two together. And if you look down here, that's exactly what we came up with. You never just automatically circle an answer without double checking everything. You have to make sure that it makes sense. So now I'm going to come over to my sentence. And I'm going to say the total number of miles the Goodwin family traveled can be represented by 316 times 2 plus 56 times 2 equals M. So I've used a sentence to rewrite the question and answer it. And D is going to be our correct answer. So this is what I expect when students are using Connect 4 thinking in order to prove their work for word problems. It breaks it down, gives them multiple ways to think about it, and also gives them chances to check their own work. So I hope this example is helpful for this week, because you will be using Connect 4 thinking in order to solve some word problems. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. Have a great day, guys.